All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the War Commander Rogue Assault official audio podcast. I am your host, Swag, but I am hardly the main event. The man of the hour, as it is Mr. Josh Hendren, the general manager of War Commander Rogue Assault. Thank you so much for being here today.
No, I'm happy to be here.
We have a lot to talk about Rogue Assault today, but first, a little bit of introduction to you. Can you give the players a little bit of your history with Kixeye?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Kixeye now for about a year and a half. I started as the executive producer on War Commander Browser. I was on that team for about a year before I came over as the GM for War Commander Rogue Assault.
So you're all War Commander all the time?
I'm all War Commander all the time.
Fantastic. Well, one of the reasons why I arm wrestled you in here today is we have a lot of upcoming changes to the game, stuff that people might log in and say, oh my gosh, everything's changed. And you basically kind of volunteered to come in and explain some of that to us, so I appreciate that. Let's just jump right into it. Where do we want to start? some of the things that we're going to be changing to the game, and possibly a little bit of backstory into it.
Yeah, there's a number of things that are coming up that are going to be changing, and the backstory for that really is the game has been globally launched now since December, and we've been over the last month and a half really kind of been looking at player feedback, looking at the data that we're getting from the game itself, and recognizing that we're deficient in a number of areas and we're not making the best game we could make. And so kind of taking that into account, we wanted to change a couple of things. A number of things inside the economy are going to be changing. I think most players will feel like they're getting a better economy overall and a better experience because of the changes we're making. Mm-hmm. Some changes with game balance are happening as well, just because we noticed win rates at different levels were either way too high for what would be a comfortable game experience or way too low. You don't want to be a defender that always gets your base just squashed because the game balance at your level is out of whack.
Sure.
Conversely, you don't want to be somebody who's constantly trying to attack somebody and failing all the time because your units aren't strong enough. So there's a lot of things we were looking at and a lot of changes we wanted to make into the game overall.
Yeah, I see that in. You ask gamers, what they value in a game these days, especially an online game. Pretty much in the top three, they'll always say is game balance, right? It might be, graphics, might be controls, and then game balance is always up there towards the top.
Yeah, game balance is one of the harder things to do. I've been in video games now and making games for about 16 years, and one of the hardest things to do is really balance a game well, so that everybody can be happy with the experience that they're having, mm-hmm. Regardless of whether you're a defender or an attacker in this case. And so it's really something that we've been looking at, and we've been making small adjustments here and there for the last few months, but we haven't really been able to make the larger adjustments that we wanted to until we got all the information and kind of put our heads down and really thought about how we wanted to make things better for everybody.
Okay, so balance. I know some of the units are getting balanced. Can you talk about some of those changes that are upcoming for those?
Yeah, I'll talk about a couple things there. So, just on the unit balance side alone, we've been seeing a disproportionate amount of use on some of the units like the S-13s and the rocket buggies, mm-hmm. and allowing players to use them in a focused, what we call mono build, which is the entirety of their platoon is being used for S-13s or rocket buggies. Mm-hmm. And that's not the intention of our game. We don't really want an experience where a player can use one unit effectively across all things. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly not the intention of the game that an S-13 can be used even upwards into CC7 and CC8 at some times and still be effective. So we really wanted to look at those two units in particular and kind of bring them down a little bit in power, just kind of bring it so that everybody can spread across the multiple units that we have in the game and use different tactics that are appropriate. So we're bringing those down a little bit in power, and then we're also looking at some of the turrets that we have in the game and making sure that they're effective and utilizing the proper rock, paper, scissors that we want from turrets versus certain types of units out there. Obviously, most people know that the machine gun turret, it wrecks infantry right now.
Sure.
So the machine gun turret was supposed to be there to wreck infantry and light vehicles, and it's not doing what it's supposed to do on the light vehicles right now either.
Darn
so that's
you.
one of those things. Yeah, that's one of those things we're really kind of looking at and making sure that we have the right balance there. What we expect and what we want from our players is to build out a base that has a multiple multiple types of turrets in it so that they can defend from multiple different types of platoons that are coming their way. And the attacker has an interesting and tactical approach that they have to take to attacking a base so they can pick off the right turrets at the right time with the right units. So that's kind of what we were looking for, and we just weren't getting that with some of the units we have because they're OP. So we're bringing them down a little bit.
Yeah. Plus, it's good to have variety. And then I think one of our air units is getting touched as well.
Yeah, what we definitely noticed is when you get to the higher CCs, the Thunderbolt and the Raptor are great air units and are heavily used. But we noticed that Reapers, in particular at the lower CCs, were not used very much or not very effective.
Yeah.
So we're really boosting their power in terms of DPS and health and speed to kind of make them a more relevant unit at that level. What we've seen is at a CC3 or a Command Center 3 or a Command Center 4, there's a lot of defense that comes online, but the offensive gain's not quite as much there. And we really think that bringing the Reaper up to a level of usefulness will help kind of balance out that win rate at those lower levels.
Nice. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, before I was kind of using them for more like for distractions. Hey, go attack the Reapers while I come in with my other units. So that's great to hear that they'll be have some more teeth, as they say. Okay, let's keep going on the unit discussion here. I know there was some talk about the costs for building units. Was that going up, down? Where were we going to be?
Yeah,
on
so
that one?
what we looked at, and this is the bigger econ change that I was referencing before. But when we looked at our units in terms of cost to build the units, the cost to upgrade the units, and the power that was associated with those upgrades, we wanted to take more of a holistic pass at that within our game. We had the best intentions before global launch, and we had a number of our designers worked really hard in getting the tuning that they thought was appropriate. But once we had hundreds of thousands of players playing our game daily, it really came down to we could see how those numbers were playing out in the game, and it wasn't exactly where we wanted them to be. And so what we're doing now is kind of changing our econ a little bit. And what we're doing there is we're doing a couple things. We're going to increase the number of drops that players get from PvP, from outposts, and from strongholds, and things like that. So when you get a chest and you get a drop that has criticals in it or commons in it or equipment in it, you will be getting more now, right? That was one of the things we wanted to focus on. On top of that, more's good. On top of that, we also needed to increase the cost in some areas to kind of balance out the amount of power we were giving. So if you look at when this update goes in, the higher level upgrades for units, the 5, 6, 7, 8th level of, I should say promotion, not upgrade.
Right.
Those will get a lot more powerful per upgrade. So the higher up in the promotion ladder you go per unit, you'll see a significantly larger increase in power per promotion. But we had to balance out the cost with that too and apply more of a cost to that. So we did that as well. But those costs weren't really applied to build. You'll see a little bit of an uptick in terms of what the build costs are, but because of the drop rates increasing as well, overall this should be a cheaper thing to do. So if you want to go and build your platoon of rhinos, it should be, or I'm sorry, not rhinos, but machine gunners or Abrams or things like that, it should be cheaper on the critical side to build those things in terms of time because you'll be getting more from the drops. But if you want to upgrade those things to the maximum level, it'll be more expensive getting into the 6, 7, 8, 9th range of promotion, but the power that you'll be getting from those things will be much higher.
Nice. Kind of feels more rewarding. That's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of criticals that you brought up, strongholds are getting some tweaks. That's probably going to be one of the first things that people notice is strongholds are a bit different. And I know this is kind of a big thing. Where do you want to start with the stronghold changes?
Yeah, I mean, the stronghold changes that we're doing are part of the overall econ pass that we had, right? What we saw was there are a number of strongholds out there that some people just weren't attacking at all, or very, very few people were attacking. And then other strongholds that everybody was attacking. And really, that was a matter of win rate. Some of them were ridiculously easy to kill, and the other strongholds out there were very, very hard. And so we needed to balance out those things to get them to the place where we really wanted them to be so that each one was equivalent, essentially, to each other. So we took another pass at that. But on top of that, it also meant that we had to balance out the amount of loot that those things gave in terms of how many criticals dropped out of the crates. So a couple things that are going to change with the strongholds are, instead of giving just a gold crate, they'll be using the system that everything else in the game uses, which is a bronze, silver, and gold crate is a potential drop from a stronghold. And that was really an oversight before we went global that didn't go in.
Gotcha.
On top of that, the crates themselves, you'll get less criticals, obviously, from a bronze than you would get from a silver, and then you would get from a gold.
Sure.
A gold is this equivalent amount of criticals, more or less, as what you would get before. A couple other differences with strongholds, though, is they're going to require something that we call a redeployment token. Redeployment, yeah, it is new. Redeployment tokens are tokens that you can get from outposts on the world map, and what these tokens do, essentially, is allow you to replay a base for free. And when people hear that and they say, well, I could do that before anyways, I could just, hit it again if it was a stronghold. What this is going to actually allow you to do is you can hit that base again, but it'll also automatically heal your units. So if you hit a stronghold and you can't defeat it and you have the number of redeployment tokens you need, you can spend those redeployment tokens. You'll automatically have all your units healed, and then you can finish off the stronghold.
So when we were saying for free, we're saying no oil cost.
No
basically.
oil cost, that's
okay,
right.
Cool.
No repair cost.
Repair cost. And repair, right. Yeah. Just wanted to clarify that there.
And then a couple of other things that we're changing is we're also adding gold, the actual gold currency, to all gold crates, which includes the stronghold gold crates. So if you get a gold crate or chest from the strongholds, what you'll find is that you'll get your criticals that you normally have gotten, but you'll also get some amount of gold that comes with that. And really, that was something we've been wanting to do for a long time. We just hadn't had the opportunity to do that. And so we wanted to kind of allow all players in the game to get some level of hard currency so that they can slowly spend into the game, even if they don't want to be spenders themselves. That was an important thing for us, and we wanted to get that in the game.
Cool. Well, all sounds perfectly reasonable so far. And speaking of strongholds, which are in the war zones, I know one of the things that has kind of come up every now and again are players saying, hey, we can't get in because of the insertion points.
Yeah.
They're just being surrounded.
We're constantly working on trying to make that experience a better experience, and we have some features in mind on the roadmap that we think will make the world map a much more exciting and interesting place for players to play in.
Gotcha.
But, that takes time. And before then, what we wanted to do was not have the experience that we saw oftentimes, which is just a blocking of the insertion points, not allowing players to get out and play into the world map and have a good experience out there. We also didn't want to lose the fun and interesting tactical experience for alliances, which is allowing them to kind of control a ZA, control a section of the map themselves by putting fobs in front of it and at the choke points and different things like that. And so what we are hoping that accomplishes for us is it's a little bit of a best of both worlds. Everybody has the opportunity to go out there and experience the boss battle and things like that on world map. But if you're an alliance that really wants to hold your own area, you can still do that because the other areas of the map are perfectly acceptable to put fobs down on. So it gives 6 ZAs basically a little bit more of a free area to kind of come into the world map and play in without just getting overwhelmed right away.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty decent compromise. Wow. I got to say, this was I thought some of this stuff would be hard to talk about, but it's actually been exceedingly easy.
Yeah.
It really, I think everything that we've done so far really kind of makes sense. Obviously, we want to hear your guys' feedback, especially the subreddit is one of the best places to do that. Myself, the other community managers, the moderators, we're on there all the time reading people's feedback. That's actually a good question. I didn't have this written out, but I think it would be a good question. If say somebody wanted to give you some feedback, like what would be the best way for like them to construct it, like in a sentence, like or in a paragraph, like if I were to pass on some feedback from a player, like what's the best way for them to execute that?
Sure. I mean, just from my experience on Workman Browser as well as my experience in WCRA, the forums are the best place for that.
Okay.
My design team and myself look in the forums frequently. I usually get in there and try to read the forums at least a couple times a day just to see what players are saying and what's going on. Reddit is a good place to do it. The subreddit obviously is a good place as well. And I try to get in there, and I know that my design director does as well. And as we kind of get to a pace that where we can get things out there in a little bit smoother pattern of releases, then we'll even have more time to kind of engage with our player base and kind of understand what they're looking for. I have a high degree of interest in hearing what players want to be different about the game, and I usually am very much in favor of talking to players about what's coming up next too, long enough ahead of time so that I can get feedback from them. So those are both important things.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thank you so much. I know you have to probably rush to 3 back-to-back meetings. So thank you very much for donating your time today, and we look forward to the changes.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thanks for listening, guys.